So we are starting to hear more and more information around next generation. Certainly for Sony, as they're being very open about it now with videos from Mark Cerny and people from AMD going over some other strategies and ideas they have outside of just more powerful hardware. Well, now we're starting to hear some stuff for Microsoft. They've kind of alluded to it here and there, with Sarah Bond mentioning the biggest leap we've seen in terms of technology for this next system. And we had rumors that maybe they weren't even going to attempt it. It was being canceled. Well, as of last week, it seems like it's still on. In fact, right now it's full speed ahead because we have some details that have allegedly leaked out around the APU, or the chip itself that will be powering the system. And after taking a look at it, I do have some questions specifically around the direction Microsoft's about to go in, how much it's going to cost, and if this actually could be the biggest leap we've seen when it comes to consoles from generation to generation. We're going to go over all that here today. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. So we can take a look. This was over on Moore's Law is Dead's channel. He did an entire video going over what's called AMD Magnus. That's the name internally, it seems, a code name for the chip that will be inside of this next device. And I don't necessarily want to say next console, because the thing with these specifications, and the other thing I've of course noticed now, is there are questions around, is it necessary right now to go to a new generation? As you can see at the bottom, targeting 2027 for launch. I've seen people say, hey, I'm good till like 2030. The PS5 or the Xbox Series X, even the base PS5, you could say, doesn't feel that outdated right now, and some are wondering when they're going to get games that fully take advantage of these systems. Well, I think we are seeing some now. I understand that this generation has been a bit slower going than previously, but also I feel like the jump just wasn't as obvious or massive as we've seen in the past. So it kind of feels like people are getting, I don't want to say PlayStation 4 Plus or Xbox One Plus games, because we've really erased most loading screens and stuff. It hasn't felt like we've gone that big aha moment like we've had in the past from generation to generation. But looking at these specifications here, I'm sure many people are like, okay, what exactly does this do for me then? Because I'm already getting 4K games. Yes, upscale, but I'm already seeing 4K games. I have some games at 60 frames per second with performance issues, but they're at least around there, and games already look really, really good. So when I say, hey, you can see the size at 408, that's it's larger than the Xbox Series chip by, that was going to be like 25% or something. It's also larger than what's apparently going in the PlayStation 6. You could see the 68 RDNA 5 compute units. It was disabled from up to 70 even. The 4 shader engines total. You can see the 24 megabytes L2 cache for GPU, 192-bit memory bus, up to 3 Zen 6 and 8 Zen 6C. So the idea being 11 cores, or 10 apparently, it can somewhere in there, 10 to 11. And they'll have different tasks. Some probably even be used for some of the lower power state. As you can see, the NPU, that will be used for some of the AI related tasks, that having a lower power mode of 1.2 watts, even with 46 tops. And I know a lot of people are like, it's a lot of jargon. What would this exactly do for Microsoft to warrant a jump? Because it's been so easy in the past, I'm sure. I don't say easy because making a system like any of these are difficult, but of selling or marketing the system as in, hey, it was 1080p, now it's 4K. Even before that, when you looked at the Xbox 360 and the PS3, going to the PS4, it was the move to x86, and that was sort of pitched as, yes, these games are going to look and run better, but also developers will just be able to do more, and development won't be as clunky as it was on the PlayStation 3. During the PS3 era, I'm sure many of you out there, longtime PlayStation owners back then, the third-party games weren't great in terms of performance. You never knew what you were going to get from a new release. Sometimes they were good. Many times they weren't. It was pretty bad for a system that out of the gate was $600 and was propped up as this premium system. But that was kind of a big aha moment of, wow, these games on the PS4 are running well. Developers seem to be focusing in on it, and it's cheaper than the Xbox One that was all about the more multimedia focused aspect, right? And then we go to the PS5 and the Xbox Series, and the jump wasn't there as much. And you have to go way back in time, yes, to 2D to 3D. From even then, 3D, basic 3D up to the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox, we had more narrative-driven experiences that were able to take advantage of the hardware to convey some awesome stories and experiences. We've kind of plateaued a bit now. I think most people know that. I will tell you, looking at this AMD Magnus, it's pretty strong. It's pretty powerful. It is. And when I think about, okay, this is going to be a powerful system, I do also think back to the Xbox Series buildup, where, and kind of the PS5, really. I mean, there's a lot of discussion around how this thing is going to be insane. It's going to be so strong. Even some of the Xbox higher ups got in on it. It eats monsters for breakfast, and it's this 12 teraflop beast. And then there are games that the PS5 just outperforms it on. And that comes down to developers, the tools provided, and then where a lot of their focus was, because the PS5 just has a much larger install base. So, I mean, yeah, it's probably what your default system is going to be from a development standpoint. And then you'll start to move it over and work on the Xbox Series version, if at all at times, So when I look at this and tell you, hey, it's gonna be really powerful, but it might also be $800, $900. I mean, there's an $800 Xbox Series X on the market now. So that's obviously not out of the realm of possibility because one exists. However, that's not the baseline. Remember, that comes in right now with the Xbox Series S, you could say at $380. But the Xbox Series X, all digital, $600. The one with the disk drive is $650. So they can charge more and just say, hey, you get more storage. Now, Microsoft right now doesn't seem like they care about selling the Xbox Series console anymore. I think the prices pretty much reflect that. So when I see targeting 2027 for launch, I go, wow, they're going to wait 2 years, because we think about these releases as lining up with holiday. November seems to be a month they all really like launching, Microsoft and Sony. 2027 feels like a while from now for their current actions in the market. It almost feels like they're ready to move on soon, like next year. But it could also be maybe first half of 2027, because we're to a point now where technology can just launch whenever during the year. Nintendo has shown this twice now, whenever they want. They launched the Switch 2 in the summertime to start summer, which is typically a somewhat slower period. People are off, on vacation and spending time outside. Gaming, people are still playing games, but it's not as in like the forefront, especially in, like, for example, the US and stuff where people are out, as opposed to in the wintertime, more people are inside playing games. So I think Microsoft could launch this thing first half of 2027. Otherwise, though, 2 years from now, I'm curious how much lower can the Xbox Series sale or console sales go? I guess we may find out for this. So what exactly is Microsoft doing here? And does it make sense for them to show up with an $800 to $900, maybe even $1,000 system? And I say that because I'm not sure how interested they are in subsidizing this after seeing this handheld from Asus show up that is $1,000 for the flagship model. Now, they could subsidize it, of course, if they want to, and get somewhat aggressive with the pricing, but it seems like Sony, based on their language recently in a video for the PS6, is more so thinking about price while still having some innovation, but thinking more along the lines of how can we upgrade developer tools? How can we do things with software and certain parts of the chip that will be really focus in on? For example, they want to conquer ray tracing, and they seem to want to conquer machine learning algorithms for upscaling to where it's incredibly difficult to tell native versus upscaled. That all makes sense so that you can, pack in a chip and then components that won't look as impressive on paper, but when you see the game, okay, that was pretty good. I like what I'm seeing here, and then it'll punch well above its weight, basically, as Mark Cerny kind of said. But with Microsoft, they seem more interested in the idea of almost building a PC, and that's my biggest takeaway here. As Moore's Law is Dead was going over some of these specifications, he's kind of referencing the idea that this is the closest we've seen, or at least heard of, for an APU like this, of being a PC. And some of that has to do with the shared tech that they seem to have with AMD and developing. As you can see, it's like a 2-chiplet design here. And one of those just being the GPU that most likely would also kind of be shared with AMD and their products. So if you won't have scaling issues, as was explained by Moore's Law is Dead in his video, when we hear about that handheld that allegedly, we'll say for now, was canceled because, they need 10 million, but do we need those many chips from AMD? We don't know if we're going to sell that many right now. So when you have potential scaling concerns, but it's going to be very, very similar to what ships out for our Windows PCs that you would jam a video card into. Okay, that makes more sense. So we can kind of get away with this then, because there'll be GPUs using it, our system will be using it. And then this APU is interesting to me because it does seem like it would be right at home in like an all-in-one desktop or something where they're limited on space or power draw or heat or whatever. And I almost wonder if Microsoft, as has been alluded to, the largest technical leap is more so the idea. We're thinking of, the open world is going to be shinier. It's going to be larger. It's going to be more interactive. The pores on the character's skin is going to be easier to see, or there's going to be more sweat. Whatever. We're trying to think in that regard, right? I think it's more so around the idea of the developer environment, but then also the ecosystem itself. And when you start to run out of like graphical leaps that you can sell the system on, you got to think outside the box. And legitimately, it'd be thinking outside the box too. This APU, I almost wonder, would become kind of what the Z series right now from AMD is. So Z1, the Z2, those are used in those handhelds. So think about the ROG Ally X or the newest Xbox Ally X. Those have like AMD Z chips in them, and those get passed around to a bunch of different handhelds. Many companies use them. Asus, Lenovo, they have them in their handhelds. And I almost wonder if this is kind of a strategy Microsoft has to where they tie Windows in with this as we see their new Windows experience for these handhelds. That also kind of then trickles over onto their systems, their consoles. And you could have Asus show up using this chip to make their own Xbox. Lenovo doing the same thing. You have Dell show up and make an Xbox, I guess. But they would all kind of center around the same sort of chip, but with different configurations, maybe different frequencies, different amounts of RAM, storage, the design of it. I'm sure there's things they can do outside of just the chip. But if they have, or if developers have a specific setup like this that they'd work off of, and Microsoft might be able to plan out more around backwards compatibility, they would probably be able to merge the PC side with the console side, and I think provide a very compelling experience for the living room, for the console gamer. I have a lot of questions still about this, if they can really pull it off, but let's say this system, I'm going to go, in my mind right now, like worst case scenario, but I'm going to say $1,000, right? They show up, hey, it's all nines, because they gotta try to take that penny off for marketing. Let's just say that. It could be less, sure, but they show up and say it's $1,000 basically, but you can log into Steam, you can log in Epic Game Store, GOG. We have certain curated, we'll say, storefronts you can load up. That might be compelling to people who have a gaming PC in their office, but they want something for the living room that would do 4K, even upscaled, but give you a pretty good experience all the way around and have access to that library. I do wonder how Microsoft would tie all of this together with Windows and have those people still pay to play online for the console, because that's the big sticking point still. And I think that would be a massive thing for Microsoft to do, is to remove the need to pay to play online. So then you can merge your PC and your console users completely together and rely on Game Pass that is now $30 a month for Ultimate. But you might be able to tie more people in with the idea of just a large library of games and day one releases, especially if you've now taken over their living room with a system that would work really well into their PC ecosystem. Now, my doubts around them pulling it off certainly comes down to how open they would make the system, because you can make it so open that it is really just a PC, but then you also leave it open to people who might end up with viruses or something on their consoles. And that's been a benefit of the console to a degree, is, it's closed off enough to where you don't have to worry about some of that like malicious stuff or annoying things when it comes to PC gaming, because you can just have issues outright with a game that should work, but for some reason it just doesn't want to load. It's a driver issue. Like, there are things that console gamers really like about consoles that would frustrate them completely with PC, because it can become inconvenient and kind of a nightmare depending on the situation. But if they close it off too much, then it would just feel like another console experience and wouldn't really mesh with PC and sort of that mindset. And the backwards compatibility thing, I think it would be cool if they figured out how to make Xbox, Xbox 360, and Xbox One, and even Xbox Series all work on this device, and then also on PC. That would be really interesting to see them figure that out. I know there's a lot of licensing and rights issues, but I feel like if it loads up an emulator, okay, is that a gray area still? Again, I'm not really sure, but this is a tall order for them to figure out. And that's the reason I'm like, man, is this really the direction for them? Well, the specifications here kind of lean into that. It feels almost over-engineered for a closed console box like we're hearing Sony making right now. Maybe this is Microsoft's big swing, but if they come to market with it, while it would seem like a cheap gaming PC, it would also feel like a very expensive console. So I don't know if they would be able to sell more than they did with the Xbox Series at that price point. But I think you'd have maybe a customer base that's a little happier about it compared to where we are right now with the Xbox Series. If nothing else, because, well, you can load up your Steam library and you just have a bunch of stuff to play, and if Microsoft doesn't really care to support it, there's always something to play on Steam. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Do you like the idea of Microsoft maybe pushing towards the idea of bringing the PC experience with a lot of those benefits to the living room in a more convenient package? Or would you rather them make a closed box that's just cheaper? Like, would you rather them go for a $400 to $500 box that's still very similar to the Xbox Series, but maybe leverages upscaling and AI in interesting ways there? I will tell you, I'm very curious to see this kind of a reveal now, if this is indeed the path they're going. Waiting 2 years, though, that is the thing that's really surprising me now. So maybe going into next year, we'll find out more from Microsoft themselves, because they've already mentioned it. So it kind of feels like they themselves are also ready to move on from the Xbox Series. But let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.